I will tell you that a commitment to creation care and creation stewardship is deeply biblical, and one of the things that in my own Christian formation and my own learning and my own development, back to the 1980s, I can trace my own insight and understanding coming from a Calvin publication. There was a famous publication in 1981 that was published as a result of a faculty scholarship effort here called Earthkeeping. And I remember stumbling across this book when I was a college student, and I thought, wow, you can actually care for the environment, which was something I had instincts around because I loved being outdoors and was an avid backpacker in the Northwest and loved the natural beauty of the area that I lived. But I had never thought about integrating it with a biblical worldview that I also believed was really important. And so here were great scholars at this place called Calvin College that I knew almost nothing about, writing about this subject, and it was very inspiring to me and very encouraging to me. And I have to say, the learning that I acquired by reading that book has stayed with me. So a lot of the views and commitments and the perspective that I have on these issues personally have been shaped by the legacy of Calvin education. And so congratulations. Is anyone who was a part of that project still here?
Randy?
No.
I thought it was
I
possible.
read it too.
Yeah. But what a great start. And so when Calvin, when the opportunity to come to Calvin was upon me and upon my wife, and actually it was 4 years ago this month that was something our family was weighing, and actually I think we said yes on December 10th, 4 years ago. So it's a little bit of time's gone by. But I will tell you that two of the things that drew me to Calvin, one was the deep and pervasive theological commitments that faculty and staff here. It didn't matter who I was talking to, you could see this deep commitment to the idea that God created all things and called them good, that we live in a broken world, that the Christian task, because Christ loves and sacrifices for us, that we are called to respond. And the way that we respond is by loving our neighbor and by caring for all that we've been entrusted with. But it wasn't enough to do just that. We have to actually be engaged in renewing a broken world. And so that was the first big thing that drew me to this place. But also, the second were things like the environmental stewardship commitment that the whole college seemed to have. And I remembered reading a policy that was approved by the faculty and the Board of Trustees in 2007 called the environmental, let's see, I'm going to pull it up here. It's on our website. You can actually look for it because I found it back in 2012 and I pulled it up again today. But it's the Statement on Sustainability that many in the room worked on. Actually, raise your hand if you actually worked on this back in 2007. So there's some folks here raising their hands who were very involved in this, and it's pretty unique in Christian higher education to have a document that explains with clarity and depth, and it's rooted biblically and theologically in a pervasive commitment that's going to characterize the activities of an institution like Calvin College. And so, if you look to the bottom of this, you see that this is a commitment that the Board of Trustees have ratified and endorsed and approved of, and that it's also something approved by the Faculty Senate. So it's actually a pretty extraordinary document and commitment. And if you go online and check this out, I'm going to read to you some parts of this commitment and what it means. But if you go online, you also see that the college commits to work in 11 specific areas on advancing environmental sustainability as Calvin operates, everything from curriculum to waste management, so all kinds of things. And when you look at that list, it's pretty impressive and it's pretty ambitious. There's a long list of aspirations, but I'll read the opening statement. As a confessional community in the Reformed tradition, Calvin College seeks to be caretakers of creation and agents of renewal for creation in our daily lives as a collective community. The guiding principles in this document are evidence of our desire to live out our pledge of love and fidelity to Jesus Christ, who gave his life so the whole of creation could be reconciled to God. This document is offered in the spirit of encouragement and shalom rather than legalism in our desire to do God's work in God's world. In hope and expectation during this present time, we avail our lives to God's faithful working out of the coming shalom. Wonderful opening statement. And actually, if you're interested, I do encourage you to go back and read this, because this is the guiding star to me then, when some faculty came to me right when I arrived on campus, and they said that there is a college president's climate commitment that the Calvin College hasn't signed. Will you sign? And I said, I just got here. Let me see. I had actually, but I had come from an institution that had signed a climate commitment. Whitworth University was a signatory of this. And I do remember the discussion that the cabinet leadership had when this was signed. We said, wow, this is a great thing. This actually is very consistent with our Christian perspective in terms of what our job should be. And our president signed it pretty quickly. It was I don't remember it being a really big deal. And we tried to do some things, change some waste management policies and think about our fleet vehicles and air miles traveled. We tried to do some of those things. But I remember about 3 years later, the APUCC, I think that's the right acronym, they came back and said, so what is your plan for achieving carbon neutrality? What year are you going to do this, and what have you been doing to get there? And all of us went, oh, they actually really mean we're supposed to accomplish carbon neutrality. And it was a good wake-up call, actually, because it was at a time when college presidents were signing on to things left and right. And this was clear to me that if you're going to make this commitment, you actually had to live it out. And the other thing that became clear to us at Whitworth as we were trying to live it out was that there were a number of things that we could say, yeah, the president's committed to this, but depended upon the employees and students of the institution changing, doing. And actually, the president was signing on behalf of the whole community saying we were going to be different. And yet, I think what we realized is we hadn't received the buy-in of the community to be different, if you know what I mean. So for us to be serious about our sustainability commitment, one of the things I wanted to make sure is our community committed to me signing it, or is our community committed to being different with respect of use of resources? And I don't know. I don't know. But one of the things that we decided to do was, as part of the strategic plan that was approved by the faculty and by the board again it was the January of 2014, the strategic plan that will carry us through 2019, is it committed to 3 things, and I'll read these objectives to you out of our strategic plan. Objective 3.6a, and you should know these objectives are things that we are living with every day, and we're actually trying to make measurable progress on everything. We have actually individuals responsible on the cabinet. We have dates that we're supposed to achieve certain things by. We grade ourselves every quarter with green lights for good progress, yellow lights for we're not doing so well, and red lights for things that we're behind on. So these 3 areas are actually graded and evaluated by us right now. Objective 3.6a is governing committees and boards with responsibilities relevant to sustainability will continue to align the college with the guidelines espoused in the Statement on Sustainability. So what that means is we're going to become even more integrated and better at organizing our sustainability efforts. I think one of the things, and I'm going to integrate what Second Nature is observing, they observe that a lot of wonderful sustainability initiatives are happening at Calvin College. And actually they are pretty effusive in positive praise for many of the achievements that we have accomplished here. And these are things that lots of people have been working on for a long time. People in physical plant, the faculty on ESC, curriculum innovations, and so on. There's a lot of great things that have been happening long before this. But one of the things that they observe is that these are decentralized efforts, and there's not integration and an effort on the part of senior leadership, that is people like the cabinet, to own that objective and then to try to coordinate the efficient achievement of that objective. And so this objective that I just read is our commitment to improve in this area, and Second Nature's report confirms that that's something that we need to do. And I'll explain our responses to this in just a second. Second objective is 3.6a, B, environmental sustainability will be developed as a valued theme in Calvin College's educational framework, scholarly agenda, and operational practices. and as well as assessment. Okay, so what does that mean? The faculty have been working hard on an educational framework that really will describe what we promise will be part of the education that our students receive. In other words, the faculty have asked the question, what are the enduring traits of a Calvin graduate? And sustainability is one of the components of this framework that articulates a series of principles. And sustainability is a key component of the citizenship principle in the framework. And so that has been accomplished. But one of the other things that I'll point out that's been going on this year related to the Second Nature report, but also related to some work that Becky Haney has been providing leadership on, is an assessment strategy. We can, in fact, what this document in 2007 did that I was referring to is it espoused a high ideal, a high commitment. But what we need is a way to grade ourselves and really evaluate how are we making progress in tangible and concrete ways. And so there's another acronym, the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education has a system, and I think you refer to that as ASHI, something like that. What that group has developed is a STARS methodology where you actually get stars for different things that you're doing as an institution, and you're able to evaluate your progress and overall as an institution. And so Becky's been working on evaluating that. I have to say I've been very impressed with the way that achieves what I said Whitworth didn't achieve very well, which was a measurable way to note progress and a measurable way to move toward long-term objective of being better creation stewards in the long run. And so that's another objective. The final objective is, and this is really the task that Second Nature worked on for us, is Calvin will complete a cost implementation analysis to inform a decision on whether Calvin becomes a signatory of the American Collegiate and University President's Climate Commitment, okay? And so what are our next steps with this objective? The Second Nature report has been completed. I think we'll be posting that so that anyone who wants to can see what is being suggested. It notes a number of areas of commendation for Calvin College, and it also notes that some key things that we need to do. And it relates to what I'm going to communicate today about our commitment to the President's climate commitment going forward. A number of things that need to be done, I think, and I'll pretty much summarize it this way. Like I said, it would be easy for me to sign this, and then for all of us to go back to doing what we've always been doing the same way that we've always been doing it, and to not really think about how are we going to give this, create an accountable set of systems and structures to actually get things done in a coordinated way. And so in order to respond to this critique of our lack of integration, what I'm asking is, starting today, is I'm commissioning the Vice President for Administration and Finance, Sally Vanderploeg, and the Vice President for People Strategy and Technology, Todd Hubers, to co-sponsor a chartered effort on the campus to bring together people across divisions to work for the next several months to design how our administration needs to be organized in order to achieve our goals, okay? And what I envision long run is that one of the cabinet members will have primary responsibility for making sure that we are achieving these goals, but also we'll need to reorganize ourselves in a way administratively to make sure that many of the things that we've said we're committed to doing are actually getting done in an integrated way. I'll take you back to this the statement on sustainability, and I told you that there were 11 areas of commitment that had long lists of things that we were aspiring to do in 2007, and I'll just list all 11 of those to show you how comprehensive and pervasive this statement is. And remember, this statement was ratified by the board and by the faculty. Teaching and research, things like making sure that in our teaching and research that these sustainability initiatives are integrated. Purchasing and administrative services, to make sure that our purchasing policies and administrative service policies are promoting the sustainability values that we sign on to and espouse here. Solid waste reduction and recycling. There's been a ton of progress in this area, and actually that's something that a lot of people aren't always aware of. But probably when I look at this list, there's a few areas where we've made substantial progress since 2007. This is one of them. But we want to continue to work on that. Energy purchasing, it's our utilities purchase cost. In 2007, what this statement observed was that $3 million of the college's budget annually is involved in energy purchase. I bet it's more now. I'm not sure of that, but that's a lot of resource. It's a lot of power in the economy, and it's a lot of energy. And so we need to be thinking about not only the purchasing, but the efficient use of energy. We know that actually the most cost-effective energy is the energy that isn't used, right? So that's our best strategy, actually, if we can take approaches in our operations that help reduce energy usage, we're going to actually be able to attain these goals. But a lot of times this isn't something that just the physical plant director, Phil Biesel, he can't just do that on his own. It requires a coordinated effort. It requires capital resources to do things like change out windows or meter buildings and so on. And so it takes a lot of planning and coordination to do things like that. Water and wastewater, hazardous materials, transportation. I'm just going to walk through food and food service, campus grounds and land use, building construction, new and renovation, as well as campus site planning. All of these things are identified with a long list of tasks associated with them. And this was passed in 2007. And I think that there have been departments and committees and groups that have looked at different pieces of this. But in no way did this come together at the central level of the college to say, how are we performing across all these areas, and make sure that where we're not making progress, we support the effort to do that. And where we are making progress, we should stop and celebrate when that's happening. And so this STARS approach that Becky's been working on will give us the capacity to begin to do that. But we need administration and faculty committees and student groups to be coordinated in this effort. Okay, so that's integration. That's our first effort. And so this charter is going to yield at the end of its process, which is not going to be any longer than, I would like it to be no longer than a 6 to 9 month process. If you need a little more time, I might let you go 12 months, but I'm not going to let it be longer than that, because we've spent we do a lot of thinking and discussing really well. This needs to be an action plan, and so that's the direction that we're going to take in this charter. So that's going to give us a strategy and approach for organizing and integrating our efforts. Second, it's pretty clear that if we are going to achieve the long-term goal of carbon neutrality, it's probably going to take us 25 to 30 years. And when we surveyed other institutions, that's about how long they're taking in this effort. Also, we're at somewhat of a disadvantage because where we are is the energy we use, electricity we use, is heavily dependent on coal, which is the dirtiest fuel. And so actually we've got a much harder pathway than when I was in Washington, and it was hydroelectric, solar, and wind. And so I was like, oh, darn it. Michigan's great in so many other ways. But our dependence on coal means that our carbon path is going to be a little bit longer, and it's going to be more challenging. But we need to develop a set of tactics and strategies and a plan over time. But also, this is where students come in, I think, in significant ways, but our employees as well. I'm very aware that I could sign this, and then people could say, what are you doing about this, Michael? But the fact is that we're not going to attain this goal. We're not going to really be able to do what is espoused in the President's climate commitment unless we all change. Our patterns of commuting, the length of our showers, the ways that we leave lights on, just to name a few. Actually, those individual behaviors are much more influential in the use or non-use of resources than many of the kind of macro institutional efforts that we make. And so what I want to know also at the end of this charter process is what are students and employees committed to doing to get us there. In other words, this signature that I intend to put on the climate commitment document, at the end of the day, I'm going to be representing everyone in this community saying we're in on this and we're committed. I'm not going to be saying I'm doing it. Okay? Does that make sense? And so I'm going to want to see tangible ways that students and faculty and staff intend to help us move in this direction, because we're not going to be able to achieve the goal unless we all commit to it. Does that make sense? And so this needs to be a shared effort rather than a top-down kind of administrative fiat, and I'm very aware of that. And so I'm also commissioning this charter group with consulting with these different constituent groups, the students and the faculty and staff, to ask them, what are you willing to organize and be committed to doing, okay? Let's see, and finally, let's see, I'm just seeing if my last point, yeah, I think I've covered everything. So integration, community-wide commitment and commitment to change in the way that we operate and the way that we do things. And so integration, that behavioral and cultural commitment. And then at the end of that process, we'll have a clear tactical plan about how we intend to achieve this over the next 5 to 30 years. And I fully expect at the end of this charter process that I will sign the agreement if we have those things in place. I think they're attainable, I think they're doable, and it makes me very excited to be at Calvin to be able to point at a very tangible set of goals and results that we can take on in order to implement this. And so I'm really pleased to be announcing that this is the direction that we'll be taking. So happy to take your questions for a few minutes, and then I know you've got refreshments and a poster session. Yes?
So there are a number of student organizations on campus here that are really committed to sustainability and kind of renewable energy solutions to campus problems that we have here. And so as far as your concern about community involvement and getting the students on board to prove to you that Second Nature's climate commitment is something we should do, what do you look for as practical ways for student orgs to get students involved and students themselves individually to help out?
Yeah, no, actually I think there are some student groups that are committed to this, but I think what we want is a broad set of commitments. So what I'm open here. What I would like students to do is to work to understand what's in this climate commitment. What are the drivers of higher energy use? And what are the things that students can be committed to? I think Kilowatt's a good example of a program that we have in the residence halls. But I'd also like us to be thinking about commuting alternatives. I'd like to be able to go to, for example, the Regional Transit Authority and say to them, we've got students who live off campus, this many are, if we found a way to subsidize public transportation, are willing and committed to do that. And find ways to both celebrate the students who make that choice and support them in that efforts. But I could go do that right now, but I wouldn't, and we could set up a new thing and then no one could go. And that wouldn't be very good. And so that's just one example. Public transportation, energy use in residence halls and in other contexts are two things that I can think of that are directly related to the climate commitment document, that things that need to change and come down if we're to achieve those goals. But I leave it open-ended in terms of, and there'll be others in this room that may be very proactive in partnering and helping students to brainstorm on what that is. We have a room full of students here, and so we're in a way, I'm asking you to get involved and help us think well about this and come up with solutions that are practical and have broad buy-in, things that students are willing to do. So, it'd be great. Other questions? Yes?
So retention and enrollment are the two big, seems like two of the big conversations.
Right.
I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about, I love the idea of more central narrative around sustainability, right? I think that's terrific. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you think that might affect enrollment and retention in terms of the narrative that's out there in our recruitment efforts.
Yeah, I haven't done a lot of thinking about specifically that. So, I think there are people that like to say this generation of students cares about X. I'm not one of those people that likes to say all students graduating from high school care about the same thing, because we actually know that they care about a lot of different things. But I do think that students in general, when a community articulates a serious set of moral commitments as we do, the first thing they're looking at is, do those commitments have integrity? So you say that, but what do you do? And so I think to the extent that we are a community of integrity, where we're making statements and then backing that up by the ways that we behave, the ways that we act, the tangible kinds of steps and actions that we take, I think that those are exciting places for people to be, students, faculty, and staff. Those are places people want to be because they're institutions that have integrity. I want to make sure that, I think we are, and I want to make sure we continue to live into that in a more deep and meaningful way. So I think that can't hurt us. So, yeah. Well, good. Hey, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for your commitment to this work. I want to let you know that it's that like a lot of things that we do, it's a long journey, and what'll be important for us is to keep working on it and keep finding ways to continuously improve. But I want to thank you. Thank your faculty and staff colleagues that are and the folks that are here in support of this. I want to thank all the efforts that have come before us. We couldn't really do this if the great work that has been happening up to this point hadn't occurred. You know, we'd be starting at zero where a lot of institutions are. But this is work that's been going on at Calvin at least since 1981 in various ways. So, yeah. I'm going to excuse everyone, but
just
go ahead.
You intimated that the Second Nature report would be available. Can you give us a sense of when and where?
Yeah, I think what we'll try to do is make that available on the strategic plan website and behind the portal, and we'll put that out in Calvin News, so that is available. Yeah. Oh, yeah, one more. I know some of you want to go. Yeah.
Curious, you mentioned Earth Keep in 1981.
Yeah.
And part of what that did was, this was an example of guests and faculty at Calvin taking a leadership role in defining Christian environmental care, creation care, sustainability. And then a lot of the work that you were talking about today has to do with Calvin sort of falling into line with accepted practices in colleges and universities and sustainability. Do you see the opportunity for Calvin to lead as a Reformed Christian institution?
Absolutely.
In continuing to define and shape what we even mean by sustainability?
Yeah, I think Calvin already does in lead in terms of faculty scholarship and approaches to teaching in this area. And there are a lot of Christian institutions that look to Calvin and what Calvin faculty have accomplished in particular here. And as I talk to other presidents, many of them are only beginning to think about sustainability as a set of issues in Christian higher education. And so I think we already are leading in some significant ways in Christian higher education, but we have an opportunity to really advance in terms of operational integrity and excellence in the Christian community in particular. And I think we have a theology that equips us very well to do this, to talk about why you shouldn't just care about it, but it should shape all that we do and what we and so I think there's some real opportunities there. I think most other Christian higher education institutions that I talk to, the commitment is relatively siloed still in certain departments, and that's about where it ends. We're farther along, and that's a good thing. So even some institutions that have had their presidents sign, that's still where they are. So we're farther along, and you haven't had that happen. So it's kind of an interesting paradox. So I will let you go now. Thank you very much for your time, and I wish you well. Congratulations.